spot going by. So I'm an alumni of Lamar. General Studies was my major, which it doesn't sound like much, but I was ready to graduate. I had about 27 hours in Spanish, and I just didn't want to wait around another year at school to complete the coursework in that. One thing I do want to do is I want to go back to complete my master's, but unfortunately, once you get out of school, you are going to see that you don't want to go back. So, word to the wise, finish your school now. If you have plans to do your master's, do it now. Don't wait, okay? Or if you want to go all the way to your doctorate, do it. Don't wait. Because trust me, once you get in your career field, you're like, for us, it's not much of an incentive. We get $50 more a month for a master's degree. So in actuality, that's my degree plan. I think it's like $1,200 a class, right? Probably more now. Crazy. So $50 more a month isn't gonna make up for the difference, you know. So Haley Tyson's actually my sister-in-law, and she contacted me and said, "Hey, can you do a presentation on ethics?" And I said, "Yeah, but ethics is a really tough topic to talk about because for us, it's geared toward everything's geared towards law enforcement. You know, our oaths are really what we go by, but everybody in here has a set of ethics that they go by, and you'll see what we're talking about. But there's a lot of interactive sessions I want to do here today, so I don't want y'all to just stare at me and want me to talk the whole time. I'm going to ask y'all questions. Please give me some feedback, okay? We're going to go over a few cases, and we're going to talk about social media. I came in an era when I graduated high school in 2000 that social media wasn't big. We didn't have cell phones in class. Really, I didn't have them in college either. Because around 2007 was the transition. So everybody in here probably has a cell phone, right? So information spreads rapidly. And I want to cover a few topics now. I want y'all, we're going to engage. I want you to ask me questions as well. A lot of them are geared towards social media and what information we can and can't release. Okay? A lot of times we get bashed on social media because it's like, the police did this and they're not saying nothing. Well, we have a set of what? Of ethics and codes that we have to follow by, that we can't just release stuff. And we'll go over that here in just a little bit, but hopefully this works. If it doesn't, bear with me. Everybody in here is business major, right? Okay. By show of hands, who's from accounting? Cool. All right. Hopefully you'll see. No, it's not working, right? Naturally. Okay. So. Dang it. Anybody know what I should do?
You could try downloading it. And then,
So just go ahead and say download.
yeah,
Does that send it to my email? Save. Open.
oh. And then on the right top corner.
Which one?
Scroll down. It
Scroll
looks like,
down?
there you go.
There we go. Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, like I said, my name is Cody Guidry. Here's my information. I'll leave it up afterwards, so that way if y'all want to get a hold of me. A little bit about what we're going to discuss. Okay, first we're going to define ethics. There's several different definitions out there, but I found a reasonable one, and then we're going to go into the most basic of what ethics is. Okay, how ethics affect us. Okay. How do you define ethics? How do you define it? Is what I want to hear from y'all. What do y'all say what ethics is? Why are ethics important? And what determines your ethics? And then after that, I'm going to give a little recruitment speech. Try to get some accounting majors in here to be police officers. We always need some good fraud detectives if you're interested in that. So we'll go into that. All right, defining ethics. It's a code of values which guides our choices and action and determines the purpose and course of our lives. So ethics are really about what? Right and wrong? Anybody else? Bueller? Huh? Guidelines, right? That's good, yeah. I've even simplified it more by saying they're what we do. Because everything you do has a what? A consequence, right? You have to think about that. And who determines whether it's right or wrong? You, right? But what also who? Our society. You know, we have a court system that says, hey, these are the laws that you have to abide by. Or if you don't, these are the consequences. So it's really, in essence, what we do. Does anybody disagree with that? No? Okay. Now, this attachment is about trust-based relational intervention. It's a program that's out of TCU, the Camphurst Institute. Any social work people in here? No? Okay, well, I won't bore you over that. But really what this is about is talking about the attachment styles that from a young baby that's been in the womb to kids that become adolescents and then once they become an adult. Now, it's talking about the issues that they have of why they can't self-regulate. I used to be one of those ones before I went to this class. It was a 10-day class that you have to be certified as a practitioner. And as law enforcement, we look at it, we go, why can't they just act right? Why can't people just do the right thing? Well, maybe it's through this, they've shown that science, that kids that have traumatic incidents when they're young, say a mother who has a baby in the womb who is addicted to heroin, do you think that's a traumatic incident for that baby? A functioning of the brain that is raised with a single mother or father, that alcohol abuse, drug abuse, they don't get the tender and the love, the care that people that don't have those issues that can follow that understand. Does that make sense? So the whole thing is geared towards self-regulation. So, but they believe that even a kid that's 12, 13, 14 years old, that's probably sucking their thumb still, and literally, that they're reverting back to being a baby. And when you're a baby and you're cold or you're hungry, what do? Cry, right? What does the mother or father do? Feed them or put a blanket on them, right? There's some kids that don't get that. And so they're not able to develop that. And after seeing the science and her actually work with kids that come from troubled backgrounds that turn straight and they turn out to be productive citizens, it's really interesting to know. And so the reason I throw this in there is because from the first stage, they're learning what? The ethics, right? The foundation. Don't do this, don't do that. But if they're not learning that, what are they going to be doing? The opposite, right? What normal society is saying, hey, this is okay, we should be doing this. Maybe they're like, I don't understand, I don't know that, so I'm going to do this. Okay? And then what happens when they become an adult? More likely than not, they're probably going to become part of the adult system, right? The criminal system. They're going to get in trouble, run into law enforcement. So there is help on that side. But to tie that all in, ethics are what? They're really instituted early and young. And as a society, we teach our kids ethics. What affects what we do? How are we raised? Does that affect us? Right? You know, some ethics that morally people will discuss and fight over. They'll say, hey, in my culture, this is what we do. In my culture, this is what we do. As police, we have to deal with an Asian culture that some believe that beating their wives is normal, as well as an Hispanic culture, that they are submissive to the man. And so You need to understand that before we respond to calls, and we're like, they take that as it's not a crime, it's normal, right? Because why? It's how they've been taught. And so it can become an issue. So what about culture? Yes. Environment, right? So we talked about earlier, if you're in an environment of people that are smoking drugs and shooting up heroin, what's more likely than not they're going to continue to do or start doing when they become of that age? The same thing, right? Has anybody ever heard of the cycle? We want to break that cycle. And I think that one of the big ways is by ethics, instilling ethics in our youth. The chief's vision when he first came here was working with youth first and foremost. One of the major issues we found in working with the schools is that kids, once they get to a certain grade, they can't read. And so what happens if you can't read? You can't excel, you're not going to go further, right? So you're going to go down that criminal path. And then they're going to encounter us, and that's who we're dealing with. And we're dealing with people that aren't educated, and they can't read. So we started to get into schools, and we're starting to teach kids early and help them that way, which just really isn't a police function, but society has kind of dealt police with this responsibility. And we've been dealt with a lot of different responsibilities in the last 10 years that I really don't think we should have a lot of involvement in, but it is what it is, and somebody has to do it, okay? Your attitude, you think that has anything to do with it, right? Because if you're not willing to be coached, are you going to be a good player? No, right? There's really good people with good talent, but they can't be coached. So ultimately it runs back to their ethics. And then, is there any others that y'all can think of?
Religion.
Huh?
Religion.
Religion, right? It's one of the big ones. That's what we're about to talk about. Why are they so important? Rules and guidelines to follow. Guide for self-reflection. So we kind of keep ourselves in check. We talk religion, right? That's one of the big ones. The 10 Commandments. And we're going to talk about a case here in a little bit. And I want everybody to give me an answer. And I guarantee the class is going to be split on whether or not the decision these guys made was ethical or not. Law enforcement oath. We take an oath that it's actually the law enforcement code of ethics. It's right here. I could promise I told you I probably read it once or twice. That's it. And the only reason is because I had to make this presentation. So, how do you define ethics? Huh? Don't look at the screen, please. How do y'all define ethics for yourself?
Just like doing the right thing, you know?
Just doing the right thing, right? I mean, seriously,
I don't know how to describe it.
keep it simple. The KISS method. So one thing as law enforcement officers, what we're asked is doing the right thing when no one is around, even if the right thing is hardest. I had an FTO when I first became a police officer. I don't know if y'all understand how the field training officer part works, but what happens is you have 26 weeks you have to ride with somebody, and they're constantly grading. And it's kind of intimidating, really, because you don't know these people, and every one of them are different. You have 5 different ones. And while they're doing this, I had one who asked me, he said, okay, what if we find $1 million in that bag? What are you going to do with it? Would you take it to your house? What would you do? If you found $1 million in that bag, you knew nobody would ever find out. Nobody would ever find out that you took it or you had it. What would you do? Ask yourself. I mean, it's a hard question. It really is when you really think about it. You're like, nobody knows that. Damn, money. But then you're like, man, it's a trick question. You're trying to train in the fire or what? You know? And you'll really see where your ethics lie and what is where you're at as far as understanding that. A code of conduct, your moral compass in your heart. So, because have you ever done something that where afterwards you're like, man, I feel bad about that. I shouldn't have done that. You know, as human beings, that's how we should feel. The people that don't feel that way, I feel sad for them because they're gonna have issues in life. So this is a real good example. It's called "It's Okay, Son, Everybody Does It," and it's about Johnny when he's 6 years old, all the way up to I believe 18. I don't know if y'all can see it, but just to get the gist of it, what he's talking about is at 6 years old, his father. He was with his father when they were caught speeding. His father handed the officer a $20 bill with his driver's license. "It's okay, son," father said as he drove off. Everybody does it. Okay, so this kid sees what? That's okay, right? And so it constantly, basically what it does, it builds up to where his aunt does something, it's done something. Well then, when he becomes 19, he's approached by an underclassman who offered the test answers for $50. "It's okay, kid," he said. "Everybody does it." Well, Johnny was caught, and he was sent home in disgrace. "How could you do this to your mother and me?" the father said. "You never learned anything like this at home." Right? Anybody in here have kids?
Yeah.
Yes. So we see with our own kids, right? I've seen it before. I'm like, there was a door. We went to eat at an establishment, and we were going out the side door. My daughter, I said, "Let's go out this way." She said, "Well, Daddy, it says don't go out that way." I said, "Well, let's go out this way. We can depart right there." So when we got outside, I said, she said, "You're not supposed to do that." I said, "It's okay." And then when I read this, I was like, it's not okay. Because those little things add up to big things. And if you really think about it, it does. And kids are smart, and they pick up on every little detail. Excuse me. So unethical behavior paved with rationalization. Okay, it's habit form. So basically what they're saying is the same thing again. That it's okay, everybody's doing it, right? And there's several of those up there that I guarantee you everybody in here has been a part of that or done it, okay? But as a society, how do we better ourselves? We keep it at a higher standard, right? So as law enforcement, we're held to a higher standard anyways. And that's the nature of the job, and we have to understand that. So, with that being said, everybody in here has social media, right? Facebook. Okay. Does everybody like the Beaumont Police Department page? Have you liked it yet? Okay. Well, if you haven't, please do, okay? So, we had an issue we've had several issues on Facebook where people will jump to the conclusion or post something that a suspect posts after an incident, and he tries to describe the incident without knowing the facts of the case, right? And what does it do in the public image? What does it do? It says what? Hey, the police are wrong, they didn't do this. That it creates a false narrative in reality, okay? We recently just had a case where a guy was arrested. It was at his residence, okay, but it was based off a traffic stop. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I'll give y'all a little insight. It was based off a narcotics investigation where an undercover officer saw them make a transaction at a known drug location, okay? That vehicle was stopped on the street, but that suspect took off and drove into a driveway, drove deep, okay? Does anybody know what I'm talking about? The incident, right? Well, on the video, all you see is him saying, "Officer, why are you at my house? Why are you doing this?" Right? That's what y'all see. Okay? What you don't see is the narcotics that were collected, the dope money, thousands of dollars that was collected from illegal activity, right? And the proper traffic stop that was conducted. Just because it's at his residence doesn't mean that his family member that drives up is safe at home. It's not like that. You're saying, okay, man, hey, you want to do whatever you want to do. Sorry. We would have a lawless society. Everybody just be running to their houses as quick as they could. Especially if they're drunk, they'd be driving as fast as they could. Okay? So with that, does anybody have any questions on that? Come on, y'all can talk. Hey, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Seriously. As far as, because what I say is perception is reality, reality is perception, right? And that's what we have to deal with, especially on the media side, and getting out information to the public. And I tell the public, hey, if you have any questions, call me. And we'll deal with it. I may not be able to give you the exact answer you want, but I will steer you in the right direction. If there's misconduct, trust me, the internal investigation, I don't want to go to internal affairs, okay? People think that, oh, there's a cover-up for police, they cover their own. No, it ain't like that. It's not. I don't even know half the shifts at work. There's a lot of times I'll be out in the public like, hey, I work with you. Are you good? Okay, sorry. Yeah. So, I guess what I'm getting at is we have an ethical obligation not to release certain information. For why? Not to hurt that case when it goes forward. So put yourself in this position. That's what I asked y'all. What if your family member was a victim of a homicide? And I couldn't release any of that information because we had the suspect in custody. And his trial's coming up, yet people like the police are doing nothing. If I'm to jump out there and I'm to release certain details and that defense attorney gets a hold of that information and then it's squashed by the judge, what if the suspect gets off? How would you feel? You know, how would you feel? You'd be mad, huh? You'd be like, well, why didn't the police do that before? And so that's where we come into that. It's a tough ethical boundary that where we want to say stuff, but we can't. And we have a good relationship with the media. I'm not going to bash the media. They do as best as they can. But they're in competition with each other. Okay, y'all understand what that means? 6 wants out to do 12, 12 wants out to do 6, and so they're like, we got to get this out now. And I'm going, hey, hold on. Let me find out exactly what's going on, and we'll put it out. Okay, so can you confirm that this, that, and I was like, hold on. So if you don't ever say, hey, police confirmed, Sergeant Guidry confirmed, I would look somewhere else just to confirm yourself. Because why? We're all on media, right? Because whatever you put out, the people that follow you, more likely than not, they're going to be like, hey, there's substance to this. This is reality, belief. And then once it spreads like wildfire, how hard is that to combat? It's hard, right? So just think about that. Y'all have any questions on that? Really? Okay. Judge, want to get out of here or what? The next one is we had an FBI agent who he was actually a medical doctor at Baylor, and then he was a professor, and he came and he did a suicide class for us. And he told us about this old English case back in the 1800s where 4 individuals were on a quest from Sydney to somewhere else. I forgot exactly where. Well, on this quest, 4 crew members were on the ship. When they got on the second night, everything was okay. They ended up hitting a glacier. Well, the ship ended up sinking. They had to get onto a lifeboat. Okay, when they're on that lifeboat, there's 4 guys on there. And take it, there's 700 miles north, 700 miles south, 700 miles east and west. Okay, so they're in the middle of the water. First night, they're sitting out there, they're battling sharks with their oar. They're worried. They ran out of water. Their rations are really small, and so they're trying to spread them out. One guy gets sick, okay, and they're worried about it. So several nights goes by. They're out of water. One guy decides to drink his urine. He says, "You know what? This is better than drinking seawater. Why? Because the salt, right? It's going to make him even sicker." So he ethically decides to drink his urine, which I'd probably rather die. I don't know if I'd be doing that. So he decides to do that. Well, the other 2 decide, "Hey man, this isn't going to get good." So 2 weeks later, while they're still in the water, they conspire together and they're like, "Hey, Johnny is really sick." And I'm just saying Johnny because I don't remember the guy's name. He's really sick and he's hurting. And ethically, they couldn't handle him in pain. And so he's like, "Hey, let's make this decision. Let's put him out of his misery. Let's kill him." And he's like, "Man, I can't do that." And so everything that he's been taught up to this point, he's been like, "Man, 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill," right? And so he says, "Let's table it. We'll talk about it tomorrow." So the next morning, wake up and it's bright and sunny, and their minds aren't thinking straight. And he says, "Yeah, let's do it." The other guys got into a coma now, and they're more worried about him. I think he's just going to pass away. So he pulls out a little dagger, and he's like, "Man, I have to do it." And so he jabs him in his jugular, and he ends up killing him. Well, after he kills him, the other guy goes, "Well, man, we don't have any food. So what do we do?" He said, "Well, let's eat his body." So he decides to be a cannibal, right? So they all jump. They're like, "Okay, let's do it. You know, we have to do this." So they do it. They eat him. Well, 2 days later, they're found. Well, none of them contest the story. They say exactly what happened. Well, the English, I forgot what you call it, head detective guy. I don't know exactly what you call this, but he said, "That's really what happened." He said, "What'd you stab him?" So he shows him what it was, and he collects it. And he says, "Well, why did you do this?" And he says, "Out of necessity. I didn't want him to suffer." So the queen says, "No, we're going to try him. They're charged of murder." So while they're sitting on trial, out on bail for trial for murder, for what they did, the third person who wasn't involved in the homicide, they ended up dropping the charges, and they used him as a witness. So it makes me think that maybe they said, "Hey, if you'll agree to testify, we'll drop the charges." So the other 2 were set to be put on trial, right? So I'm going to ask y'all, what would you do in that situation?
If I was still on the boat and I had to eat the person,
Yeah.
I'd probably eat him.
Right, show of hands, who would eat it? Man, when he told me the story, I was like,
That's the fire, man.
you know, the will to survive is so strong that it's mind-boggling why people want to commit suicide, right? You would eat it? You'd eat them?
How many days were there?
How many days? Man, it was almost 3 weeks.
Damn, man.
On water, with no water, no food, and then you start to drink your own urine, and then you're drinking salt water. So, you know, but on the other side, they say, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8? Who thinks they were guilty? Okay, why? Because why? Hang on, what do y'all gotta say at the time? I'm sorry. I don't want to go. What time y'all get out? 1:30?
1:30.
Okay. I'm sorry, say it again. Why?
Because everything has a consequence.
Because everything has a consequence. Good. Anybody else? What? Tell me why. Why do you think they found him guilty? If they did. Why would they?
Not a crime that it could happen when they found.
Yeah. What about not guilty? Why would they find him not guilty? Yes, sir.
Because there was nothing else they could do. Like, they had to eat something eventually.
They had to eat something eventually?
Yeah,
Yeah?
yeah.
I mean, I can see that side, you know? They ended up finding him guilty because there's no necessity to commit murder, right? So even though they were in pain, they couldn't pull the Dr. Kevorkian and kill him, right? Everybody knows about who that is, right? The kill doctor who used to actually kill people who were actually in pain. And whether or not it was their right. So it's a really unique case. It's a cool story that's still being tested in the courts today. So with that, I always like to see exactly. I figured there'd be more half and half, but I think there was more half and half. I think people weren't really showing their hands. They didn't want to be right or wrong. So talking about becoming a police officer. Show of hands, who in here has ever thought about being a police officer? Why, man? Why? Why not?
I'm just not that kind of guy.
Not that kind of guy. Hey, I respect that. So what kind of guy does it have to be?
Man, I can't answer that one for you.
Huh?
I can't answer that.
Yeah, come on, man.
The kind of guy has to be, I don't know, man.
What kind of guy? Tell me. So you already have a. I didn't know how to say it.
That's business.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, I don't know. A cop is like a kind of person who's like willing to like go out there and take care of something they have to do, you know, for other people. Like really, not saying that I wouldn't do stuff for other people, but like,
I got you, man.
you know what I'm saying?
I
Being
totally
a cop is doing a lot for other people.
Yeah.
Like ex-military.
Yeah. Ex-military in here? Anybody? Two? Cool. I'm telling you, we need good men and women, and we need ones with different backgrounds and educational side as well. I'm telling you, I never thought that I would have been a police officer. Really what I wanted to be was an ICE agent, which is kind of like an FBI agent, but it's through ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And I was actually in the academy with Beaumont for 18 weeks. And ICE ended up calling me. I don't know if y'all know anything about the federal system. It's slow. Everything that the government does. So it takes like 2 years to get hired. Because by the time you go through all the background checks, polygraphs, all that, well, they called me. I'm 18 weeks in the academy, and they said your duty location is Los Fresnos, which is now South by South Padre. And y'all don't know me. I like the water, and I'm like, I went to Texas A&M Corpus too for a while. So I like, yes, that'd be awesome. But I decided to stay in local law enforcement, and I'm glad I did, because we're really a unique department in all the opportunities that we have. It's not just being a patrol officer on the streets. You can do anything from range of detective work, street crimes, K-9. There's a lot of different options that you can do. You start.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure if I want to be a cop because I sometimes have to go to some of the grimiest places like crack houses, break up prostitution rings.
Yeah, I mean, it can get messy. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I don't think that's like no disrespect.
No. I mean, I think the reward outweigh the risk. I think. but
Yeah.
I think it's been a unique perspective. I never thought I would have been in community relations doing media relations. And when I first came to talk to the media, no, I won't do that. But this is giving me a whole different angle inside for me, that if I do want to go in the private sector, you can work for a plant, you can work for any business, because they all have public relations. And we know how social media has become. Every business needs it, and they're gonna need it. So it's just kind of unique on that side. I was always the guy that, when I first got in, I went into street crimes, and I was like, man, this is what I want to do. But then you kind of get burned out on that, you know, especially, or narcotics. There's just so many different angles that you can do. We actually now, it's 3 years continuous employment with no breaks between jobs. So you can either have 30 college credit hours or 24 months of military service. But the pay is decent. You know, I wish I got paid more, but compared to other industries that we have in this area. So, and it's long-lasting career. Actually, my wife's a cop too, report author. So hopefully we're retired. I don't know how long I'll do. I could be a greeter at Walmart after I retire. I'm telling you, that's like the gig. That's what I want to do. To be able to talk to people when they come in, and that's it. Especially after doing this job for so long, you really need something like that. So, with that, do y'all have any questions? I mean, anything? Nothing? Yes, sir.
Is it frustrating to have to like abide by the code of ethics that you're talking about like pretty constantly? Because for me, when you asked why would you not want to be a police officer, it's because I don't really like following orders, to be honest.
Yeah.
It seems really annoying.
No, I totally agree. You know, really, my thing was college sports. That's what, baseball, that's what my motivation was. But once I got in this career, I really regretted not going in the military. And I really thought about doing it, sometimes joining like now, but I'm like, at 36, I really listening to orders, somebody yelling at you all the time, I'm like, no, I'm kind of past that, you know, but it's one thing I do regret. I wish I would have done, just for the camaraderie and the tradition of it, and especially in this field, it really helps, I think. Just to see other guys rag on each other, especially if they're in the Navy, and then other ones were Marines, and the funny things they say to each other. Yes, sir. What's the scariest thing I've been to? Man, if people tell you they're not scared, they're lying. I mean, we all have fear. That's how the human body is made. I would say probably on a couple of surf sports we had, especially being on spot, you know, when we were shot at, you know, you're drunk. But really, I don't call it fear. It's adrenaline that's running through. And we train so much on that side that you really push through, and then you don't think about that till afterwards. Does that make sense? Yeah. But I think that's really, yeah, you know what I mean? We're really fortunate here at Beaumont, you know, to be part of the SWAT team and have a regular duty. We tried to get a full-time team, but it's just with manpower issues. So we're part-time, but we train monthly. And it's real critical training that I wish the whole department could do. Because that's really the whole key element to a police department is training. The continued training. I've seen a unique side, I will say, being in this year. As an officer, now, I would rather take 5 minutes to talk to somebody that's upset and hear them out than say, you know what, we don't have time for this, I'm moving on. Or have something else, or, you know what I'm saying, or talk. It's easier to talk someone into cuffs than it is to fight them. But I will tell you this, there's times you have to fight people, but it does not matter. If somebody does not want cuffs, if she doesn't want cuffs on her, it's gonna be really difficult. And I'm telling you, and it's gonna look bad that I have to slam her and pull her around, because I'm telling you, have you ever tried to put a handcuff on somebody that's not willing? it's tough. And we have a citizens police academy, and every time we come to that section, I say, all right, well, come arrest me. And I said, no, man, I didn't do nothing, man, get off me. And they'll just chase me around the room. And it looks kind of funny, but they're like, man, that's harder than it looks. I'm like, yeah, it is. You know, and then it looks like a show of force when you have 3 guys that have to jump on somebody. But the fact is, they're not getting hurt worse by moving around and you having to do it for 10 minutes. Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
Like when was that point like where you learn like restraint? Like for instance, like I'm pretty sure when you growing up, your parents told you don't let no one disrespect you.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when you're a cop and you get disrespected by people, but you still have to keep that restraint and keep your ethics. Like when was that point where you was like, okay, I'm a cop now, like whatever you say is like,
You know, that's something you have to learn throughout the job,
Yeah.
and I see where you're coming from.
yeah,
I think it's kind of funny because now, when I'm off,
yeah.
I'm off. I'm not cop mode. I don't want to be a cop. I want to be just everyday citizen and have fun. I'm not here to jump in the middle of people's problems. You know, now if there's a major incident where somebody life threatening, yeah, I may step in, but any minor thing, I'm not. But at the same fact, yeah, I understand the restraint part. Yeah, it is difficult, but it's something that you got to understand when you come to this job. That I don't know if anybody knows the old movie Roadhouse, but I'm not going to say the quote, but basically it's all about restraint and don't let words can't bother you. You know what I mean? So, but I say that to say this, that some cultures, they cuss. Other ones, they don't. And so sometimes people don't understand, sir, 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 until you say something else. Does that make sense? Any other questions? No, y'all ready to get out of here? Okay. Well, hey, if y'all have any questions about recruitment, please come talk to me. Thank y'all.